Something significant shifted this week for every American homeowner over 60, and the people most affected by it are the last ones being informed. Not by their mortgage company, not by their county tax office, not by the evening news. 4 separate developments landed this week that touch the financial foundation of senior homeownership directly. And each one carries either a deadline you need to know about or an opportunity that closes before summer ends. The first is a property tax reassessment wave hitting this July that millions of long-time homeowners have no idea is bearing down on them. The second is a quiet structural failure in senior property tax relief programs that is pushing eligible homeowners out of protections they legally deserve. The third involves enforcement changes to reverse mortgage rules taking effect this summer that are blindsiding families who thought they understood what they signed. And the fourth is genuinely good news, but only for the people who find out about it and move before the application window shuts. Every one of these developments gets broken down today in plain language with specific steps attached. Subscribe right now and activate the notification bell before we go any further. What I'm covering today is breaking as of this week, and every item on this list has a clock attached to it. Subscribe so you are never finding out from a piece of mail that the deadline already passed. We start with the most time-sensitive situation, because the clock on this one is already moving, and most of the people it will hit have no idea it exists. This July, multiple states are activating revised property tax reassessment cycles that will affect homeowners who have held their properties for 10 years or longer. This is not a rumour or a projection. It is scheduled policy that was written into legislation in multiple states during 2024 and 2025, and that takes effect in the third quarter of 2026. The states activating accelerated reassessment schedules this July include several of the country's most heavily populated retirement destinations, and the financial mechanism is straightforward in a way that is going to shock a lot of people when the bill arrives. Under the previous reassessment schedules in these states, a homeowner who purchased their property 15 or 20 years ago might only see their home reassessed for tax purposes every 5 or 6 years, or in some jurisdictions only when the property changed hands. That created a meaningful financial cushion. The taxable value used to calculate the annual bill, the number the county multiplies by the tax rate, often lagged far behind what the home was actually worth on the open market. For retired homeowners on fixed incomes navigating a rising real estate environment, that gap between taxable value and market value was the buffer that kept their housing costs manageable. The new reassessment cycles compress that buffer and in many cases eliminate it entirely. County assessors are now being required to bring taxable values to current market levels on a shorter and more frequent schedule in markets where home values have climbed between 35% and 60% over the past 5 years. That recalibration is not a minor administrative update. It is a bill increase that can reach into the thousands of dollars arriving without any advance public warning for homeowners who have never encountered anything like it before. Put real numbers on it and the scale becomes clear. A home purchased in 2008 for $180,000, now carrying a current market value of $420,000, but assessed for tax purposes at $210,000 under the old cycle, generates an annual property tax bill of roughly $2,520 at a 1.2% effective rate. Under the new reassessment bringing taxable value to current market, that same property generates a bill of $5,040 annually at the identical rate, a $2,520 increase in a single year. For a household managing on Social Security, plus modest pension or retirement account withdrawals, an additional $210 per month in fixed housing cost is not a rounding difference. It is the threshold that separates a budget that functions from one that does not. And because reassessment happens administratively, through a mailed notice rather than through a public vote, millions of homeowners will encounter this as a surprise when the new bill arrives rather than as a debated policy change they had time to prepare for. Here is what to do. Contact your county assessor's office right now before July and ask directly whether residential properties are being reassessed in 2026 and what the proposed new assessed value of your specific property will be. Most counties are legally required to send a notice of proposed assessment before a new value takes effect. That notice comes with an appeal window, typically somewhere between 30 and 90 days. If the window closes without action on your part, you are locked into the new assessed value for the full cycle, with no ability to challenge it after the deadline passes, regardless of how unexpected the bill turns out to be. The appeal process is something a significant number of senior homeowners do not know they have access to, and it is more accessible than most people assume. If your county has assigned a new taxable value you believe does not reflect your property's actual market value, you can challenge it. The process varies by jurisdiction, but generally involves filing a formal appeal, gathering recent sale prices for comparable homes in your immediate neighbourhood, properties of similar size, age and condition that sold within the past 6 to 12 months, and presenting that evidence before a review board or hearing officer who holds the authority to reduce your assessment. Assessors work from broad market data that does not always account for the specific characteristics of individual properties. Comparable sales that support a lower valuation than what the assessor assigned give you a legitimate foundation for an appeal and a realistic chance of a meaningful reduction. Filing fees in most jurisdictions run under $50. The potential annual savings over a full reassessment cycle can reach into the thousands. The second development is something that has not found its way onto any national news broadcast because it lacks a single dramatic event to anchor a headline. It is a slow erosion that is quietly displacing millions of senior homeowners from property tax protections they are supposed to have. Call it the senior exemption gap. Every state in the country maintains some form of property tax relief designed for older residents. Senior exemptions, homestead protections for seniors, circuit breaker credits, senior freeze programs, property tax deferral arrangements for elderly homeowners. The names vary by jurisdiction. The intent is consistent. Protect long-time residents on fixed incomes from being priced out of homes they spent their working lives paying for. The problem is the eligibility criteria for these programs were established years ago in many states and have never been revised to account for inflation. A senior freeze program constructed to shield homeowners with incomes under $35,000 when it launched in 2009 still carries that same income threshold today, even though Social Security recipients have received cost of living adjustments every single year since then. The threshold did not move. The nominal income of millions of recipients did. The result is a growing category of senior homeowners who are no longer eligible for programs that were specifically designed for people in exactly their financial position. Not because anything about their actual economic circumstances improved in any meaningful way, but because their Social Security income crossed an outdated eligibility line that no one in the legislature updated to match reality. This failure is arriving simultaneously with the new reassessment cycles hitting this July, which means the homeowners being pushed into financial stress by rising tax bills are precisely the homeowners whose safety net programs are quietly failing to catch them. What to do? Even if you applied for a senior property tax exemption in previous years and were told you did not qualify because your income was too high, reapply now or contact your county assessor's office to find out whether the thresholds in your state have been revised. Several states updated their senior exemption income limits during 2024 and 2025 as part of property tax reform packages, and homeowners who were denied previously may now qualify under the revised figures without anyone notifying them directly. If you have never applied at all, the time is now. The applications are generally uncomplicated. Documentation typically means your most recent tax return and proof of age. The potential benefit for eligible homeowners can be substantial. In states with senior freeze programs, qualifying can lock your property's taxable value at its current level, regardless of how far market values rise in future years. Securing that protection before the new reassessment cycles take effect, this July could represent thousands of dollars in annual savings for as long as you remain in the home. The third development involves reverse mortgages, and it is generating real harm for families who believe they understood the terms of a loan they signed years ago. The Department of Housing and Urban Development is implementing strengthened enforcement of the occupancy and maintenance requirements attached to home equity, conversion mortgages, the federally insured reverse mortgage program, beginning this summer. Homeowners and their families who have not carefully reviewed what these requirements actually demand are receiving loan due notices for reasons they did not see coming. The foundational requirement of a home equity, conversion mortgage is that the borrower must occupy the home as their primary residence. Annual certification of that occupancy has always been required. Starting this July, loan servicers are being directed to conduct more rigorous verification of those certifications, including third-party or in-person confirmation, in cases where documentation appears incomplete or inconsistent. 3 categories of situations are generating the most loan call activity under the new enforcement standards. The first is extended medical absence. A reverse mortgage borrower who's been in a rehabilitation facility, skilled nursing facility, or hospital for 12 consecutive months or longer is considered by HUD to no longer occupy the property as a primary residence. The loan becomes callable. This policy existed before 2026, but the 12-month clock is now being tracked and acted upon far more rigorously, and families who assumed a parent in a care facility could simply return home at some future point are discovering the servicer has already initiated the call process. The second is deferred maintenance. Borrowers are contractually required to maintain the property in a condition that does not diminish its value. Property inspections conducted under the new July enforcement protocols are flagging homes with significant deferred maintenance and issuing cure notices requiring specified repairs within defined timeframes or triggering loan acceleration for homeowners on fixed incomes who deferred repairs because they could not afford them. This situation is acutely difficult. The third is property tax and insurance defaults. Borrowers must remain current on property taxes and homeowners insurance as ongoing loan conditions. Under the new protocols, servicers are required to verify tax and insurance status more frequently and to initiate default proceedings more promptly when a borrower falls behind, with less of the informal grace period some servicers had been extending under previous practice. If you or a family member holds a reverse mortgage, take 3 steps now. First, locate the loan documents and read the occupancy, maintenance and tax and insurance requirements carefully. Confirm that every current condition is being met. Second, if a family member with a reverse mortgage is currently residing in any medical facility, contact the loan servicer immediately to determine where the occupancy clock stands and what formal options exist. HUD does have a hardship extension process, but it requires proactive engagement before the loan is formally called, not after. Third, if property taxes are delinquent on a reverse mortgage property, contact the county assessor's office about a property tax deferral program without delay. Many counties maintain specific programs for homeowners with reverse mortgages facing tax delinquency. Accessing one of those programs can cure the default condition on the mortgage and bring the loan back into compliance. Do not wait for a formal default notice. By the time written notice arrives, the window for straightforward resolution has already narrowed considerably. Now to the fourth development, the one that can actually reduce what you owe, but only if you reach it before the deadline. Starting this July, multiple states are implementing or expanding property tax deferral programs specifically designed for senior homeowners that allow eligible residents to defer the payment of property tax. Increases driven by reassessment until the property is eventually sold or transferred. This is distinct from an exemption. An exemption reduces what you are billed. A deferral program does not change the amount owed, but allows you to postpone paying the increase with the deferred balance, plus a modest interest charge satisfied from sale proceeds when the property eventually changes hands. For a homeowner planning to remain in place who is facing a substantial tax increase from the new reassessment cycle, a deferral program can be the precise mechanism that makes staying financially viable. The alternative for too many seniors on fixed incomes is being forced into a sale, not because they want to move, but because the monthly cost of staying became impossible to sustain. The states activating or expanding these programs this July include several with large retirement populations, and the application deadlines for current year enrolment in some of these programs fall in July and August. The window to apply and have the deferral applied to the current tax year is open right now. It will not be open much longer. Eligibility requirements vary. Some programs carry income caps. Others are available to any homeowner above a specified age regardless of income level. A single phone call to your county assessor's office asking whether a senior property tax deferral program exists in your jurisdiction and what the current application deadline is will give you the specific answer for your situation. That call could protect thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket housing costs across the coming years. Before closing, I want to address something that compounds the risk for a specific category of senior homeowners. Because when multiple pressures from this list arrive simultaneously, the combined effect can move faster than a fixed income household can absorb. A homeowner over 60, carrying significant home equity, living on a fixed income, facing a property reassessment this July, holding a reverse mortgage or considering one, and carrying homeowners insurance in a state where premiums have spiked dramatically, is potentially absorbing several major financial shocks at the same moment. Homeowners insurance costs have escalated severely across much of the country over the past 2 years, driven by catastrophic weather losses, disruption in the reinsurance market, and carrier withdrawals from high-risk states in Florida, California, Louisiana, Texas, Colorado, and the Carolinas. Renewal notices showing premium increases of 30, 40, and 60% year over year have become common. For a reverse mortgage borrower, an insurance lapse resulting from an unaffordable premium increase is a loan default event carrying the same weight as a tax delinquency. A simultaneous property tax increase and insurance premium surge can push the total cost of remaining in the home past what the household budget can sustain with alarming speed. If you are in a state where insurance markets have deteriorated, review your current coverage and your renewal terms now. If your carrier has issued a non-renewal or a dramatic rate increase, contact your state's Department of Insurance and ask about insurer of last resort programs or state-backed coverage alternatives. Those options exist in many disrupted markets and are frequently less expensive than the renewal your current carrier is offering. An insurance lapse on a reverse mortgage property can escalate from a missed payment to a default proceeding within a timeline that catches most families completely off guard. Here is every action this week's developments call for. Consolidated. Find out today whether your county is implementing a new reassessment cycle this July. Request your proposed new assessed value before the official notice arrives if possible. Know your appeal deadline and understand the comparable sales process before that window closes. Check whether senior property tax exemption income thresholds in your state have been updated since you last applied or were last denied. If you have never applied, do it now. If you or a family member holds a reverse mortgage, review occupancy, maintenance, and tax and insurance compliance requirements immediately. Engage proactively with the servicer on any existing compliance vulnerability before a formal notice is issued. Ask your county assessor's office whether a property tax deferral program for senior homeowners exists in your jurisdiction and what the current application deadline is. That window is open right now. It will not be open much longer. Review your homeowner's insurance coverage and renewal terms and contact your state's Department of Insurance if you are facing a premium increase that makes coverage unaffordable. None of this is here to alarm you without a path forward. Every development covered today has a corresponding action that gives you a better outcome than waiting for a notice in the mail. The system is not designed to make it easy for you to discover that you are paying more than you have to, or that a deadline is approaching. That is the function this channel serves. Share this with every senior homeowner you know and subscribe, so when the next wave of changes arrives, you find out here before you find out from an envelope.